And there we are. All right. For the record, this is cause number CCL 20C118. In the interest of a child, the Butterfield matter. Is the petitioner ready?
Yes, Your Honor. Petitioner's ready.
All right. Respondent's ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Then you may proceed, Ms. Sheldon.
Your Honor, in this case, we would ask the court to take judicial notice of the affidavit of voluntary relinquishment that was signed by Terry Butterfield, and it was filed on March the 9th, 2021.
Any objections to the court taking notice of that document?
No, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure, is this Gary or Mr. Lay that's talking?
It's me.
Okay, sorry, I can just barely hear you. Thank you.
We provided an original voluntary relinquishment to Mr. Butterfield. He wanted some wording changes made in that. And so myself and Ms. Hill got together and looked at that. And it wasn't anything that would legally prevent us from doing that. And so we made those changes and sent him this one, which he signed. And so we have no objection to that being entered as an exhibit and taken notice of by the court, Your Honor.
All right, then the request for the court to take notice of that document is granted.
Your Honor, and I would ask, I would like to call Jill Black to testify, Your Honor.
All right, will you raise your hand and be sworn, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm your testimony to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may lower your hand. You may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Would you state your name, please?
Jill Black
And how are you currently employed?
with Child Protective Services.
How long have you been employed with Child Protective Services?
6.5 years.
Are you familiar with Nakia Butterfield?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you become familiar with her?
I became her conservatorship caseworker when she was brought into the care of the state after her mother refused to accept parental responsibility for her.
Okay, and who was the mother of Nakia Butterfield?
Her name is Latoya Butterfield.
And what happened? What's the status of Latoya Butterfield in this case?
She signed a relinquishment. I believe it was June 2020. I don't remember the exact date. Prior to the case being transferred to conservatorship while it was still in the investigation stage, she signed a relinquishment and it was accepted by the court, I believe, on September 4th, 2020.
Okay, and she has since been terminated, correct?
That's correct.
And where is Nakia, has she ever been placed with a family member?
No family members, no ma'am. She's only been in foster homes.
Okay, and have you, since you've been the conservatorship worker, have you attempted to find family placements for her, relative placements?
Yes, ma'am. We did initially look for an aunt as a possible placement. We got that name from Nakia herself. And then we proceeded to look at additional family placements. When that one did not pan out, that the father provided us at a court hearing. I think he provided 3 different possible placements for us, and those did not pan out as a long-term option for her.
Okay, and where is she currently placed?
She is currently in a foster home in Spring, Texas.
And how's she doing there?
She's doing well. She is adjusting to the overall structure, environment in the home, but she's doing well. She is in school in person. She has gotten caught up on all of her schoolwork and is doing well in that aspect. And she is currently employed at a local restaurant in the area as well. And it's the first time that she's had a job. She's had that for several months and said that she's really happy about that and being able to learn how to save money while she can. And seems to be doing really well and adjusting really well.
And I guess I should ask this, how old is Nakia?
She's 16. She turned 16 in December.
Okay. And so how long has she been at this particular placement?
She's been at this placement since October 22nd of 2020. And she was brought to this placement because her previous foster home closed. It was not a discharge in regards to anything that she did. The home just closed and is no longer a foster home.
Okay. Has she had any major behavioral issues since she's been in foster care?
Nothing that I would consider major. Most of it has been just normal teenage kind of adjusting to new environments and new rules, and having that constant adult that sets those boundaries for her. Prior to coming into care, there were several instances with her mother where her mother took her to a behavioral health hospital as a result of those interactions, but she has not had anything of that scale since coming into care.
And what is the long-term goal with regards to Nakia as far as adoption or?
She and I had a very long conversation back in December after we had exhausted all the family placement options that we were given. And she stated to me at that time that she did want to be adopted and she wanted us to pursue that on her behalf.
Okay. And what are we asking the court for today?
We're asking the court to accept the voluntary relinquishment that was signed by her biological father so that his parental rights can be terminated and we can pursue with or move forward with pursuing an adoptive placement for Nakia.
Okay. And are we asking for PMC of Nakia?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Pass the witness. Oh, let me ask one more question. Do you feel like that's in her best interest?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Albertson.
Black, if the voluntary relinquishment is accepted, would that prevent the child from ever reaching out to her mother or father if she wanted to?
No, absolutely not.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Lee?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, you may call your next witness.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
The court finds that the respondent has executed an unrevoked or irrevocable affidavit of relinquishment of parental rights. The court finds that by clear and convincing evidence. The court also finds by clear and convincing evidence that it is in the best interest of the child that the respondent's parental rights be, and they are hereby ordered terminated. The department is appointed as permanent managing servitor of the child. And if you'll draw those orders, I'll sign them.
Yes, sir. I believe the next required hearing is June the 4th, Your Honor.
Okay. June 4 at 9 a.m.
And Judge, are all other parties, well, I guess it'd be just Mr. Albertson dismissed from the case?
Yes, Mr. Albertson is dismissed. Mr. Lee is dismissed.
Oh, you don't want Mr. Lee or Costa to stay on this?
They're pursuing adoption. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, yeah, then I'd like for Casa and Mr. Lee to stay on the case then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and let's see, I'm not sure that the Campbell Johnson matter has service. Do you know if it's been served? Because the clerk said that there's no return on file.
They have not, Your Honor.
And that one will need to be reset.
It is my understanding they were supposed to call in, but I don't know if they did, the parents.
I'm not showing them in the waiting room. There is no Johnson or Campbell in the waiting room. And I think the Galaxy Tab SE is not it. Here are the names. I mean, there's Galaxy Tab SE, Jessica Attaway, Bart Claver, Vicky Claver. That's another case. Is that correct?
That's this case. That's the placement for this case, Judge.
Okay. Do you want to hear from them? You want them in here?
They may know if they may know more about the parents because I know they've been in contact with them.
I'll let them in then.
It's possible.
Now, they may be with the Clavers, I suppose. Mr. Claver, Mrs. Claver, can you hear me? There's Vicky Claver. The person on the Bart Claver phone, can you tell me who you are, please? Or Vicky Claver?
I don't think either one connected to audio.
Looks like Vicky Claver's trying to connect. Vicky Claver, can you hear me? Mr. Claver, Ms. Claver, can you hear us? We can see you. I believe you're connected and muted. Can you unmute your computer? You're still muted.
There we go.
There you are. I can hear you now.
All right.
All righty. Sorry about that.
Are you Mr. and Ms. Claver?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Judge Dowd. I'm a judge of the Cass County Court at Law. I've just called this Child Protective Service case, which is 21C-103, interest of a child in versus Erica Campbell and Tyler Johnson. Do you have any knowledge of their whereabouts or location or situation at this time?
Yes, yes, sir. The last time I had spoken to them, Erica had said that they were visiting his other children in California,
Okay.
but they were supposed to have been. I spoke with them roughly 3 days ago, I believe, and they had said that they would log in, but that's not a guarantee. So,
Okay. Well, they have apparently not logged in. No, I don't see them at all. Let me go through the names, Ms. Shelton. You tell me if any of these. I know the Galaxy Tab, Jessica Attaway, Laura Gassiet,
That's not it, Judge.
Athena R. Wood is the next case. Lucas BR is CPS, Michelle Walton, and Ricky's iPhone. Did we determine, let's see, Ms.
Yes,
Harkey?
Ricky's iPhone is Ricky Johnson and the Galaxy S5e is the Gebhardt's.
Okay, so they're not in the waiting room, Ms. Claver.
Who's on the Bart Claver phone though?
that was my laptop. We were having some
Oh,
problems
okay.
with the laptop connecting, so I logged in on my phone also.
Okay.
All right. Okay, then it looks like we can proceed with this one. Ms. Shelton, you may proceed.
Judge,
We don't have service.
Oh, so we don't for sure?
No, sir.
Okay, well, we can't proceed then. And I suppose if they're in California, that's probably the reason why. Okay, then do I have existing, is this a non-E or do I have existing emergency orders in place?
This was a non-E, Judge.
Okay, and I'll just ask it to be reset. Do you have a date preference? If not, we'll just set it for the next April regular date.
That's fine, Judge. And Ms. Claver, if you can get us some locating information for them so we can at least get them served.
Yes,
Otherwise,
ma'am.
this is just going to keep postponing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's our April date? 16th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll reset it for April 16. Hopefully, a service can be accomplished on the respondent by that time.
Thank you, Judge.
Anyone else have anything on this case?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Okay, then we'll move to the next case, which is CCL 21C070, interest of the Arwood children. And I assume I need to let Mr. and Ms. Claver, y'all may sign off. You're excused.
Thank you, Judge.
Judge.
You're welcome.
We didn't get nothing today. I can't even get close together.
I think I need to let everyone else in because this is the last case. So here we go.
We might be too close.
Whoa.
Judge, who is the Lucas BR?
That's Beverly Lucas.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I told Brandy to tell Beverly and Michelle they could hang up because they were on the last case.
Okay.
Judge, I also have somebody who's in training that needs to sit in court. She works for CPS. Her name is Rocio Martinez.
I think I let everyone in the waiting room in,
Okay.
so she should appear. Although I don't see a Martinez.
I don't either. I'm checking with her. Thank you.
All right.
Let me turn this on some.
Okay. Mr. Ms. Arwood, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Very good. Is this a 14-day removal hearing? Is that what this is, Ms. Sheldon?
No, Your Honor, this was a non-emergency removal. It got reset. The Arwoods requested a court-appointed attorney at the last hearing, if you recall.
That's great.
I think for the most part, Mr. Lee and I are in agreement. I think Ms. Blackman and Ms. Smith are not in agreement.
I think we're not going to object to the facts in the affidavit, but I think we'll just probably be best just have a hearing, a brief hearing, and
Okay.
Take her and put her.
All right, then, Ms. Sheldon, you may call your first witness.
I'd call Jessica Attaway.
And Ms. Attaway, will you raise your hand and be sworn? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
May proceed.
Thank you. Would you state your name, please?
Jessica Attaway
How are you currently employed?
with the Department of Family and Protective Services.
And what is your position with the department?
I'm a family-based safety services caseworker.
And could you tell the court basically what is family-based safety services?
Basically, what we do is if an investigation, during an investigation, it's found that a family could benefit from more services through the community that they may not have access to, such as counseling, parenting, drug testing or drug treatment, mental health referrals, anything like that, they will refer a family to family-based safety services for some continued support and monitoring if needed.
Okay. And are you familiar with Alexandria and Ariana Arwood?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you become familiar with them?
I was assigned their case in September of 2020.
And how did you receive that case?
I received that case as a referral due to concerns of, it initially came as an Amber Alert for Alexandria and her cousin, True. And then during the investigation, it was determined that the parents were positive for illegal substances. So they referred the case to us for further services.
Okay. Now that Amber Alert didn't involve anything with mom or dad taking the kids, correct?
Correct. It was an aunt, Christine Rich, I believe is her last name.
Okay. But during investigation of the family, the Arwoods both came back positive?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And was that on a UA or hair follicle or something else?
I believe it was a UA and a hair follicle.
Okay. And so when you received the case, what services did you decide to work with the parents?
I'm sorry, it was a hair follicle. They didn't do a UA at the time.
Okay.
What services? Sorry.
What services did you discuss with the parents that they were to
Okay.
work?
So we had discussed completing an ETCOTA assessment to determine if they needed to do any type of drug treatment. Following the recommendations of that assessment, a psychosocial assessment to determine if they needed any further parenting or counseling sessions, random drug testing, and counseling for the two children, Ariana and Alexandria.
Okay. And why were the kids needing counseling?
One, they had asked for it. The girls had both been interested in speaking with a therapist. And for Alexandria, she was having some issues after, for being with her aunt out in the pasture. And she and her parents both requested counseling for them.
In your opinion, had that experience been fairly traumatic for Alex?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how old is Alex?
She is 12 now.
And how old is her sister?
10.
As far as drug treatment for Athena Arwood, had she been attempting to get treatment for her methamphetamine addiction?
Not that I am aware of. I know they did complete their ETCOTA screening during the investigation and were referred to complete an outpatient substance abuse program.
Well, was she going to a methadone clinic?
Oh, yes, ma'am. She is going to the methadone clinic.
Okay, and that is in an attempt to curb a methamphetamine addiction?
No, I believe that was a prescription pill addiction previously.
Okay, so that was for a different addiction.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how long had she been going to the methadone clinic?
For about a year when I got the case, as long as they've been here in Texas.
Did you have an opportunity to visit with anybody at the methadone treatment center?
I did. I spoke with a staff member at the methadone clinic.
And what was their recommendation for Ms. Arwood?
They also recommended that she attend a treatment program for substance abuse. They had some of the same concerns, and due to COVID, they were not able to provide her any additional substance abuse treatment because of their restrictions with COVID.
Okay. So throughout this, I guess from September until now, have you been drug testing them regularly?
I have been attempting to. Sometimes it has been difficult to maybe get them on the phone, and Mr. Arwood works till 5. So I have completed 2 drug tests on them.
Okay. And what were the results of those tests?
But they did a urinalysis in October, and they were negative on that. And then in January, we did a hair follicle and a urinalysis on Mrs. Arwood, and she was positive for methamphetamines and amphetamines on that, both of them, and methadone. And then Mr. Arwood was not able to provide a urine specimen, but he did complete the hair follicle testing, and he was positive for methamphetamines and amphetamines as well.
Okay. Did you also attempt to test them in November and December?
I believe not in November. I do believe in December. I don't think I could get a hold of them in time in November.
Okay. But in December, you attempted to test them,
Yes, ma'am, I believe so.
and did they test?
No, ma'am, it was on the 30th of December.
Okay. Now, you've said you've attempted to get in touch with them. Is it issues with their phone or their minutes? What's the issue there?
Just, I don't get an answer sometimes. There for a little bit, Mr. Arwood was pretty good about responding back at times. Miss Arwood, I would have a little bit more trouble. I'd call and leave voicemails. It was kind of sporadic. I'd call, I'd text, and I just kind of I never got a call back, or unless I had to either stop by or call Mrs. Geppert.
Have they ever completed their EDCATA assessment?
They did in the investigation stage, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that recommended the outpatient services?
Yes, ma'am.
Have either of them been able to start those outpatient services?
Not as far as I'm aware.
Has the school expressed concerns about the children?
They did previously before the end of December.
Okay, and what were those concerns?
That both girls were failing every class that they had, and they were missing a lot of schoolwork. And they were worried that they were going to have failed the year and have to repeat their grade at school.
Okay, and what did you do about that?
So I had some discussions with them about it, and I've talked to the school, and I've talked with Miss Arwood about getting the kids back in doing in-person school. I think we spoke about that a couple times. And then at the end of December, after I spoke the last time with the school about how they were really, if they didn't get caught up by the end of December, they were looking towards repeating the whole grade. We had a discussion about sending the kids back to school in person instead of virtually. And the girls also said that they think they might do better in person. So Mrs. Arwood put them back in person school starting after the winter break.
Okay, was that something Miss Arwood did or Miss Gephardt did?
I am not sure.
Okay, but the girls did get back in school.
Yes, ma'am.
And how are they doing since they've been back in school?
They are doing really well. The school has told me they have no concerns at all with them right now.
Great. Have the parents completed a psychosocial evaluation?
No, ma'am.
Have they done any of the counseling services that were recommended?
No, ma'am. We did refer the children to the phase program to help the children and the parents. Mrs. Arwood did, I believe, attend a couple of virtual visits with the phase provider, but he ended up canceling his services with them as well due to concerns of not being able to verify appointment times with Mrs. Arwood or get a hold of her.
So it was another issue of not being able to get in touch with the parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tell me what the living arrangements are currently at the Gephardt's house.
Okay, right now, the parents and the Gepharts, they share the responsibilities of the home. So both of them, they pay bills. The Gepharts live inside the home with the 3 children, one that is not part of this case. And then the parents live in a attached garage room, an enclosed extra garage room off of the house, off of the carport of the house.
Okay. And as far as the safety plan that was put in place by the department, what is that?
It is that Mr. and Mrs. Gephart will supervise all contact between Miss Athena and Mr. Scott Arwood with the children.
Okay. Do you feel like if that were kept that way right now, that the Arwoods would do anything towards progressing in their services?
I do not, because we've been doing that for several months now and there hasn't been any progress.
And how is that affecting the kids?
They're really, I know initially really schoolwork was a lot of the issue, and just, I know that they struggle with rules and boundaries. And I don't know if the situation in the home with the parents being there, if it would, I don't think it's beneficial for them. They need to kind of start over with rules and boundaries and stuff. And Miss Arwood has even admitted they do need some help with that. I don't think it would be right now, especially if they're under the influence of any illegal substances, until they can be clear-headed and free of any substances, to even start initiating that with the girls.
And so at this point, what's the department's recommendation?
We're recommending that the department be granted temporary managing conservator of both girls. While we cannot recommend the Gephards, because we are still pending a fingerprint check on them, there have been no concerns with their home since we have been visiting with them these months that we've been involved.
Okay, and you're recommending that the Arwoods move out of the home, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as visitation, what is the department recommending?
We were recommending supervised visitation. I think it was 2 days a week, supervised by Mr. and Mrs. Geppert, from, I think it was 5 to 9, 2 days a week.
Okay. But at least a couple of hours, a few hours during the week and maybe a few hours on the weekend, something that's a set amount, correct?
Yes, ma'am, a scheduled amount.
Okay. In order to give some, I guess, consistency for the girls.
Yes, ma'am, and it can be in, you know, if it needs to be increased or decreased, I think we would be comfortable with that, looking at it at the time, as long as there's some progress to the services.
Okay. And that's the big issue, is making sure that the parents are progressing in services and having negative tests and that sort of thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you feel like that's in the best interest of the children?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the Gephards, they actually, you said we don't have the fingerprint background check, but they have, you said they have another child in their care, correct?
They do. They had a child placed in their care, True, the other child that was during the Amber Alert. And they did provide a FBI fingerprint in 2019, and they have not been out of the state since then, but we cannot get a copy of that report yet. We've been trying, but I can't get a hold of them. So
Okay.
they did previously have one.
And they had a home study from back then, correct?
Yes, ma'am. It was just on a different home, but it was an approved home study back in 2019.
Okay, so the department does not have any concerns. We just can't officially recommend them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Attaway, I want to just reaffirm your testimony that nothing that the parents did caused CPS to get involved or y'all to get involved initially. Is that correct?
Not initially.
And there was no neglect, no abuse, nothing like that.
And that we were aware of initially, yes.
And they voluntarily gave a drug test when y'all became involved in the investigation.
From what I could see, yes, sir.
There was no court order telling them to take the test or anything like that.
Correct.
And that really is the main problem. They've been going to school through internet or through the well, they're not going to school, but taking their lessons through the computer. Is that correct?
With the girls in school, yes, it was a concern that they were doing it virtually.
Yeah, and is that a common problem? My wife's a teacher, so I know it is. Is that a common problem on virtual students not getting their homework done timely and doing like they're supposed to do?
I am not sure. I know it has been harder for some students to do their schoolwork virtually. They don't have a teacher there readily teaching them every day.
But that problem has been corrected and they're doing fine.
Yes, sir.
And they are, the only problem really is the drug use on the parents.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And some of the problem for them getting into the working services is COVID part of that problem?
No, there is an option for the outpatient program that's done virtually right now, the one that they've been referred to. But it was through.
But it has to be virtually, and that depends on how good their phones are and how good their computer service is and all of that.
Correct, if it's done virtually, yes.
And there's limited options for in-person, or at least there has been limited options in person. I guess that's going to open up here shortly.
I believe so.
All right. Do you have it? Do you know any date, or is it we just know it's coming?
I do not know any date. They just keep saying that it's coming.
But the kids were doing fine with the parents in the home right now. And
It's-
why such limited visitation, 4 hours a week when they're normally seeing them all the time? Why?
The concern is just that from what I had been hearing, that there's a lack of involvement with the children by the parents. And that Mrs. Geppert is doing a lot of the care for the children as well. And also, when I originally talked about the positive drug test, there was no admittance to any substance use.
So if they're not doing enough to raise their kids, so you give them less time with them? How does that help the situation?
No, sir, I think it just needs to start somewhere. And that is what the department was comfortable with starting with, just until they started the services to show that they were going to get them going and start addressing the substance use. So they can start attending the counseling sessions and stuff with the children to start learning.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Blackman?
Yes, sir. Let's see. You get it to the top here. Ms. Attaway, let's see. I have a question here. Okay. You said they completed the EDCATA. Didn't really complete the psychosocial, correct?
Correct.
Drug testing only twice.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with regard to the drug testing, let's talk about that a moment. What were the levels on the first test back in September?
Those levels for Mrs. Arwood were amphetamines 566, methamphetamines 3634, and marijuana 4.9. And then
Okay.
Mr. Arwood, oh, sorry.
All right, that's Mrs. Arwood.
Correct.
And now let's talk about Mr. Arwood.
And Mr. Arwood was positive for amphetamines 663 and methamphetamine 13,207.
Okay, now this was, they denied, and they may have voluntarily tested. I heard Mr. Lee's cross-examination, but actually, they denied being positive for drugs at all when this was all developing, correct?
I do not think they did initially. I think they admitted to use initially for the September drug test during the investigation stage.
All right, did they then subsequently deny use?
Yes.
Okay, and then when did you tested them again? I think you said
They were
in September,
October.
I'm sorry, December.
I tested them again in October and they were negative on a urinalysis. Both of them were.
Okay, what about hair follicle?
They were tested again in January.
In January, okay,
Yes, that was the
so
hair follicle.
did levels go up or down? Let's talk about Mr. Arwood first.
Okay, Mr. Arwood. His levels on his hair follicle were increased. For amphetamine, it was 2,448. Methamphetamine was 31,632.
So before we move to Mrs. Arwood, let's be clear that they first tested and gave you a voluntary test, then denied that they were using any more after that, and his levels went up in hair follicle, correct? All right,
Yes.
now let's talk about Mrs. Arwood.
Okay, Mrs. Arwood did complete a urinalysis as well, and it was positive for amphetamine and methamphetamine greater than 10,000. And then her methadone 17,023. And then her hair follicle was positive for amphetamines 16,864 and methamphetamines 16,864 as well.
Now, does this sound like to you that these are people that quit using
No, ma'am.
after the first test?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so there's no progress really there. And have you tested again and we don't have the results back, or they do a test?
No, ma'am. They probably do another test.
All right. Okay, so then let's see, drug testing. Did the kids go to counseling at all in September?
No, ma'am.
Parents didn't really do that either. So I think we covered that.
I do know in December that they did try, Miss Arwood did try to get them in with Kelly Joslin. And she ended up telling them she would not book them before the holidays because she wanted to make sure she had enough appointments scheduled for her current patients. So
you're
I
aware-
referred them to another counselor.
You're aware at this time, the girls have now requested of me that they get in counseling with a female counselor.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And I can add that Mrs. Geppert did tell me they have an appointment scheduled for the 25th with Kelly Joslin.
okay, that's wonderful.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. Let's see, we talked about that. Mr. Lee has classified that has classified drugs as being the only problem, or characterized it that way. That's not really the only problem, is it, Ms. Attaway?
Not from what I have been told or from the family.
Well, you've observed the level of hostility and dysfunctionality and communication in that home with the 3 generations of people. You've observed that for yourself.
Yes, ma'am. It's a strained relationship between the parents.
Would you agree with me that, of course, the health and the safety of the children is important, but their emotional safety is also important?
Yes, ma'am.
And that under the current set of circumstances, with all the toxic arguing and things that are going on in that home, that can't be good for the kids.
I would not think so.
And they are also, because you do, correct me if I'm wrong, you may not have been told this, but I have been. Is it your understanding that Mrs. Arwood characterizes herself as a stay-at-home mom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and she's been a stay-at-home mom for, I don't know, a long, long time now. Certainly during the time that the kids were flunking their school assignments.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so essentially, from your understanding and talking to the grandmother and observing in the home, it would seem that nobody's really helping them or was helping them with school.
From the best that I've been told, yes, ma'am. They were struggling.
Okay. Did you actually talk to the kids about that?
Yes. They also told me they just did not want to do it. And they were home and they didn't feel like they would rather do something else. And some of the assignments they say they've tried to reach out to the teachers, but they just could not get the help, that they still didn't understand the assignments.
And so I have to ask you, what kid is going to say to their mom or anybody else, hey, let's go to school. I'm so excited. I want to go to school. Is that a normal behavior?
Sometimes, not often.
Sometimes when they want to see their friends and are excited about learning. And you've met both of these girls and gotten a chance to visit with them, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it your impression they're pretty bright?
They do seem to be that way. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so there are other things that are wrong in this case other than just drugs. There's no structure for these children in the home, correct?
They do tend to run the house. If they don't want to do something, they
Right.
will.
And have you had a chance to visit with the grandparents about when they try to impose structure of any kind to try to help the kids out, mom and dad kind of interfere with that?
I don't know if necessarily I've heard that they interfere, but the girls just do not listen. They will have to try to go get the parents to try to help them get the girls to mind, and they do not listen to either one of them.
They don't have any authority figure that they listen to.
At home, correct.
Right. And so did you also have the opportunity to observe that basically this is one of those situations where the parents have raised the kids to just, they give them things to do to keep them busy, like video games, food, candy, and that may be one of the reasons they're not getting their lessons done and not responding to authority?
I am not sure. We have discussed maybe taking things away from them for not minding or not doing their schoolwork. We had talked about that several times, taking away Nintendo games or tablets and stuff like that to try to help the girls feel motivated to listen and mind and do their work.
So would it surprise you then that the last time I went there was not very long ago? It was right before our last meeting in court. Let's see. The youngest child had her tablet the whole time that I was there. She was conversing with me, but she was on the tablet the whole time. And they were still excited about playing video games. And they had two 2-gallon bucket looking things full of just candy. I mean, I know kids like candy. I certainly did. But I don't think I was ever given candy in quite that quantity. Did you observe any of that going on?
I didn't see any of the candy, but they do have their tablets laying in their bed, or the last couple times I had visit, Ariana was actually hanging out with friends at the kitchen table, other kids from school. So I did notice it with Alexandria. She did have her tablet. She did put it down when she spoke with me, but she was closed up in her room on her tablet.
Right. And did you have the impression that maybe that's how they've been raised? It's just they give them things to entertain themselves and there's not much parenting going on?
I really couldn't say.
Okay. Did you see any parenting going on?
Some try to redirecting when, say, there was a situation where Ariana was very upset and Ms. Arwood was trying to calm her down, but there was no action behind it. It was just, don't do this, calm down. This is what I've been trying to tell you about, kind of conversation, but never any discipline, I guess, when I was there.
When you and Ms. Smith last visited the home, did you observe a high level of, I guess the best way I know to put it is just all talking at the same time and sort of hostile, toxic, angry behavior between the parents and the grandparents?
Yes, it was more so towards Mr. Gebert.
Yeah. So would you be okay with the parents having supervised access at the department?
I would be okay with that.
And I want to follow through just a little bit on the access thing. The current situation is not working, right?
Not to the
grandparents, mom and dad, kids. That is a complete disaster, isn't it?
It's not as well as it could be improved.
A lot. So part of the problem is that the parents don't respond to anything the Gebhardts ask them to do. And my concern is this.
It sounds like counsel is testifying.
Okay, I'll rephrase, Your Honor. Based on your observations, do you actually really think that the grandmother is capable of keeping this whole situation in control if she's supervised?
I really could not answer that. I would like to think we could tell her that if something went wrong, she could call us, she could call the police, she could make them leave, but I really do not know.
Yeah.
So that's, and I don't know, and so you're really not sure that she could. So it probably would be better if the department did the supervising.
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
I'm not opposed to it being certain amounts of time spaced throughout the week You had suggested what, Ms. Attaway, how many hours?
Was it 4 hours per week, twice
I think that's right.
was initially the discussion.
Okay. And try to think, there's anything else I need to ask you while I've got you. I think that's it. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Shelton, redirect.
Pass witness, Your Honor.
All right. Call your next witness.
No further witnesses, Judge.
Mr. Lee, first witness.
I call Miss Arwood.
Ms. Arwood, will you raise your hand and be sworn, please? Do you swear or affirm your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may lower your hand. You may proceed, Mr. Lee.
Could you state your name, please?
Athena Alexandria Arwood.
And Miss Arwood, you and I have met briefly last week, is that correct?
Yes, sir, we have.
And we went over some of these concerns that the state had.
Yes, sir.
And of course, you understand that as long as y'all testing positive, the state's going to be involved in your life.
Absolutely.
Are you going to take actions to remedy that situation? I think you're fading out.
I'm sorry, it froze up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question, please?
Are you going to take actions to rid yourself of the drug problem?
Absolutely, yes, sir. I have got the counseling, the appointment set. I have got an appointment set at my doctor's office for counseling. Scott and I have both, we are planning to move out of the house on the 1st of the month so that we can be out of the household and Mom and Tom can have their home and they can take care of the girls as they feel they should in the meantime. But Scott and I will be doing everything we can to get our counseling underway and meet all of the requirements.
One of the things you were maddest about when you talked to me was some of the statements by attorneys last time in court.
Yes, sir.
Basically insulted y'all. Is that correct?
It was beyond insulting. They were downright lies.
Okay.
I've never seen this woman
go
face to face.
Just a
So,
minute. We'll go over some things like y'all were mooching off your mother.
Right.
Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay. And was that true?
No, sir. We have, it originally the agreement was a third, but when Christine became incarcerated, it changed to a half. We have been splitting the bills 50-50.
Y'all became concerned you weren't going to get a fair shake because of these statements that were made in court. Is that right?
A lot of the things that were said, yes, sir.
We won't go over all of it, but
Okay.
that just incensed y'all on that day.
Yes, sir.
You understand what the state's requesting as far as the treatment?
Absolutely.
Perhaps parenting classes,
Yes.
counseling.
Yes.
Can y'all do all of that?
Absolutely. We were intending on doing the counseling beforehand, but absolutely, our family definitely needs it. The girls would benefit greatly. Scott and I would benefit greatly from it.
And do you realize you have a limited time frame to get that done now
Yes,
that it's
sir.
in court?
Yes, sir.
If you don't get it done, then the state can take your kids away.
Absolutely.
Y'all's only complaint with the state's recommendation right now is the limited access to the kids.
Yes, sir.
What access do you feel like would be fair?
I am totally understanding of the supervision. I have no problems with that. My girls, I bathe them. I lay their clothes out for them for the mornings. I brush their hair. There's a lot of things that I do for them on a daily basis that, number one, it would be very difficult for Mom to have to do every day. But secondly, you know, the kind of personal things, and I've been a stay-at-home mother since they were born. You know, I've always been with them. They've been able
Okay,
to.
let's get a little more specific
everything.
here. Let's get a little more specific.
Yes, sir.
You don't mind restricted visitation, but you want
No,
more than
sir.
4 hours a week.
Yes, sir.
You don't mind your mother being the boss and telling you when
No.
and where you can do it.
Absolutely.
But you want the option at your mother's request to come over and help and assist and do things.
Absolutely. To take care of their daily needs, but also to spend time with our kids.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Ms. Sheldon?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Arwood, we've spoke briefly the night of the Amber
Yes,
Alert.
ma'am. I remember.
Okay. Very traumatic night for
It
everybody.
was horrible.
Okay, now we're basically in agreement here. My only concern is the visitation. Do you understand why we are asking for that visitation to be limited?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. I guess it's to establish routine and authority with the girls.
Well, and are you still going to the methadone clinic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have intentions to wean yourself off of the methadone?
The methadone right now is not due to the pain pill addiction anymore. I have some severe pain issues. I have back problems, carpal tunnel, a hip problem. And that is the medication that was best for me to be able to maintain, take it 1 time a day. It takes care of my pain issues. The pain pills that I was prescribed, I could not, I couldn't control it. It's one of those things, it helps for a few months, but then you wind up needing to take another one or another one. And this was the best option for me.
So your plan is to continue on the methadone?
Yes, ma'am.
Long term?
Lord, I hope not long term, but until I have a better option.
Okay. You realize you cannot use methamphetamine and methadone?
Yes, ma'am.
As far as treatment for the methamphetamine, what is your intention?
I'm just stopping it. It was something we messed with occasionally. It's not something that I'm addicted to. It's not something we were doing all the time. So it's not a problem for me not to do it.
Okay, but when you knew that your rights could be restricted, you continued to use the methamphetamine. Your
We did
rights
one
to your
time.
kids.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're saying you only used 1 time?
1 weekend. Yes, ma'am.
Even though your levels continued to increase during this case?
I mean, after the fact, right before, about a week and a half before we went to do the last drug test, we messed up.
Okay, but you knew CPS was involved in your life and you still used?
Yes, ma'am. I made a terrible judgment error, and it was beyond stupid, and it's absolutely not worth losing my family over.
Now, Ms. Arwood, when your child Alexandria was missing for that time period, you were asleep during that time period.
No, ma'am. The only time I slept in 2 days was right before we got the phone call. I had just went to sleep.
You don't recall the FBI coming to your house and you being zonked out?
I do. And that was the first time I'd gotten sleep in 2 days. We were driving the roads for a day and a half, just looking for them.
So the reason for the limited access is to work on your drug addiction. Do you understand that?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
To make sure that you are working your services and getting
Yes,
off the
ma'am.
methamphetamine.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not meant to be a punishment. It's more to make sure that you are getting with the program, essentially.
Yes, ma'am.
So do you understand that?
I do. I'll be getting with the program regardless of what happens here today.
And as long as you're
Okay.
providing negative UAs, negative hair follicles, the department does not have a problem recommending increased visitation. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Blackman?
Yes, sir. Ms. Arwood, you say that you don't have a problem getting with the program, but you've actually been involved, certainly with Ms. Attaway, since all the way back in September, and you didn't get with the program then.
I've
And
tried to get with the program, ma'am.
you testified that your family is important to you, but still here we are, and we've now had to have an actual court case for you to get with the program, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
we've had to have a court case,
Okay.
yes.
Would you agree with me that your daughters are both extremely gifted, extremely smart?
They sure are, because I've had the opportunity to be able to stay home with them and to be able to constantly teach them. My child was reading when she was 3 years old because we've had one-on-one time. So yes, I know that they are very intelligent children. They're both, vocabulary is on a college level. So yes, ma'am, I'm aware of how gifted
Well,
and
I
smart.
visited with your children, but I'm not quite sure how you reconcile that with them flunking regular classwork. So that doesn't indicate to me that you've actually been teaching them what's supposed to be taught to them. So, so your testimony is that you spend how many hours a day with the kids on homework?
They don't require very many hours because when they get on their homework, they knock it out pretty quickly. Their issue, ma'am,
My question
not-
was, how many hours a day do you spend with them on their homework?
an hour
Each?
maximum.
Okay.
Typically, they don't even have homework.
Okay. How long or how often does your husband actually spend with them on their homework?
Maybe 30 minutes.
How long does he play video games with your youngest daughter?
Once a week, maybe.
Would it surprise you to know that she told me that they play every night?
Well, that would be untrue. A child's idea of time, ma'am, is not exactly,
Didn't ask for your commentary, Miss Arwood. Your lawyer can talk to you again in a minute. How long have you been in the state of Texas?
a little over a year.
And you've been in the methadone clinic the whole time?
Yes,
And you're planning to continue that?
absolutely.
How many doctors have you been to see if there is a better alternative for your
None.
alleged pain?
None,
Okay. None? All right.
not since I've been here in Texas.
Okay. So instead of going to a doctor to see if there's a better alternative, you're just going to stay in the methadone clinic. Do I understand that correctly?
Until my situation changes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that has to do with this
Excuse me,
case, ma'am.
If you'll just let me ask the questions, you can answer them. I'm just checking my list to make sure there's nothing else I need to ask you right now. And then I may discontinue my questions for right now. I think I will pass the witness, Your Honor. I've just looked at my list.
I have a question, Ms. Arwood. there was
Yes, sir.
a Statement that you and your Mr. Arwood plan on moving out, is that right, on April the
Yes,
1st?
sir.
Where are
On the
you
first
going?
of the month.
Where are you going?
There is a trailer, it's called what is it? What was it called? It's in Liberty Island, I think is how you say it. There is a 3-bedroom trailer in a very nice mobile home park. They've got a pool, they have a basketball court, they have a playground. It's a really nice little community. And we're going to go ahead and move into that so that we'll be ready to get our girls back. They'll have their own space. The plan was always for this to be temporary, and when we got our taxes, we were gonna be moving out. So now we have actually, we've reached that deadline, so we're gladly going to be getting our own place for the first time in 8 years, so.
Okay, Ms. Shelton, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Lee, call your next witness.
Call Mr. Arwood.
Will you raise your hand, please, sir, and be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're to give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may lower your hand. May proceed, Mr. Lee.
Could you state your name, please?
Scott Arwood.
Mr. Arwood, how are you employed?
I work at JCM Industries in Nash, full-time.
And out of that, have you been paying your portion of the household expenses?
Yes, sir.
You feel like your income will be high enough to where you can make the rent at this new place you are going to?
Yes, sir.
And basically, you tested positive also for methamphetamine. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Not quite as bad as your wife's, but you still tested. You understand the court's not going to give the kids back unless y'all address those issues.
Yes, sir, I do.
And are you going to work the program?
Yes, sir.
You also had a complaint about the amount of visitation. You would like a little more flexibility.
Yes, I help Alex with her math and different things like that, just things we do on a daily basis, I think it would be detrimental to just us not be there at all.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Ms. Sheldon?
I just have a couple questions. If the judge were to allow you to live in the home, you and your wife to live in the home until that April the 1st date, but limit your access to the children to a certain amount per week, as we've requested, is that something you would be willing to follow?
I could follow that if it was spread out more. I think it needs to be a little bit every day. There's days she has math homework, she don't understand it. I'm good at math, I help her, you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying if the court were to order, 2 hours per day, maybe twice a week, or however the judge decided to structure it, would you follow the court's order?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Or if he said, I know that CASA and the ad litem are recommending supervised at the department, so that would be no visitation at the house. Is that something you would follow?
I would follow anything. I don't have no problem with supervised visitation. I just want to be able to see my kids.
You're just saying you are requesting something different, but you're willing to follow whatever the court orders today.
Yes.
Okay, as long as you can stay there until April the 1st.
Yeah, it would be hard for us we have no family out here or anything, so it'd be hard for us to pick up and go before then.
So from today until April 1st, you really have nowhere to stay?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Blackman?
Yes, Mr. Arwood, I want to go back to you helping Alex with her math. It's
Mhm.
actually Anna that needs help with math, not Alex, correct?
No, it's not. No. Alex is the one that's having trouble in math if you check their grades. Anna's doing good in everything, actually.
Well, that's not what your girls told me.
Well, I have their grade cards, so I'm telling you, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm just saying Alex is the one that's having problems with math, mostly fractions, division and stuff.
So how long are you at JCM Industries? What's your shift like?
Normally it's from 8 to 5, but there's times like with all the water problems we've been having, I've been working a lot of overtime.
Okay. Do you recall when I came out to see the girls?
Yes.
To the home? And I also wanted to visit with the grandparents, and to be fair to you, I didn't want to visit with you and your wife because I figured you would need attorneys. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And the whole time that I was in the living room with the grandparents and the children, you and your wife were constantly, I guess there's a shared kitchen. You have to share the kitchen, right?
Yes.
Describe for me, if you will, just for the court's benefit, what actually is your part of the house? The garage apart, is there a garage apartment or is it
There
just?
is an apartment. It's like a add-on room
Yeah.
attached to the side of the house. That's where we live. But the house is shared by all of us. It was never their home. We all moved in here together.
I understand that now, and I was incorrect in saying that before, but I did not know that. So I guess what I'm trying to establish now, though, is the layout. You guys have a bedroom, or do you have an apartment with cooking facilities and all of that in it as well?
No, we don't. It's just an add-on room.
Okay, so really all you guys have is a bedroom. And
We have
so
a bedroom. It's connected by one door to my daughter Anna's room.
okay, so you have to, in order to get to the kitchen or anywhere else, you have to go through your daughter's room.
No, I have a side door that comes out into the carport. I can go out through and into the kitchen.
All right, and I think I saw you use that one as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess my concern is that with y'all being so closely connected structure-wise like that, that it would be very difficult for you, would it not, to not be in that house where the kids and the grandparents are, wouldn't it?
No, I mean, I would have to go into the kitchen, the bathroom, stuff like that.
Okay.
But it wouldn't be hard to separate.
It would be really hard for us to limit the access so that we can help the girls get back to a place where they have structure if you all are going to remain in the home.
I don't think so, but that's, your opinion.
Certainly on the day that I was there, you were in and out of the kitchen, the bathroom, the girls' rooms continually.
I had just got home from work, ma'am.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Arwood, Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Lee, any redirect?
That's all we have.
All right. Anything further from anyone?
No.
Let me hear from
Mr.
Casa.
Arwood?
I'd
Yes.
like to hear from Casa.
Oh, Your Honor, I would also like to call the Gephardts, please. At some
Okay, just a moment. Let me hear from Casa. Ms. Smith?
Yes, Your Honor. I went out with Jessica and we did a unannounced visit to the Gephardts, and the parents were there and the children were there. I got to briefly meet the children for a second. I didn't have alone time with them to really talk to them. It was just kind of a meet and greet and look at the environment. I'm in agreement with TMC to the department as well as placement with the grandparents. I feel like the children are comfortable there. But I do feel like that there's a lot of chaos going in the household just because, and this might not be a fair assessment because I've only been there once, but I felt the tension when I was there. I think that the Arwoods just want more visitation. I think with everything going on with the disrespect between the girls not really minding the grandparents very well as the parents, there's just a lot of chaos going on. And I just feel like it really needs to be structured for the sake of the children. I really do think that everybody needs counseling. The girls need counseling, the parents need counseling. And then I also think it's a great idea to incorporate the grandparents and some of that counseling as well to kind of establish some healthy rules and boundaries for the children. I don't feel like it has to be this way throughout the entire case. I just think in the beginning, I really do think that the department needs to supervise it for right now. And I know that doesn't seem fair to the parents, and I apologize for that, but I am looking out for the best interest of the children. I feel like we just need to kind of get this chaos under control.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Blackman, I didn't mean to skip over you. You may call your
That's
next
okay.
witness.
I'd like to call Mrs. Gephardt.
Ms. Gephardt, will you raise your hand, please, and be sworn? And do you swear or affirm your testimony to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Muted, Judge.
You get it?
Okay.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Gephardt, before I even came to your home, you and I visited by telephone as well, correct?
That's correct.
And in that telephone discussion, we talked about how things were between you and Mr. and Mrs. Arwood, did we not?
That's correct.
and you felt that neither you nor your husband could be instructive in terms of parenting. You felt that they would not listen to you about anything, correct?
Right, yeah, the kids will just tell you they don't have to do what you say.
Now, I'm not talking about the kids. We're starting with the parents. I'll get to the kids in just a moment, but you didn't feel like you could maintain any control over the parents either.
Well, can I explain that? Because what I mean by that, and I'm not sure I explained that very well the day that we talked because I was so frustrated. It's not that the parents don't deliberately try to go against anything I say. I just feel like as long as you have parents, when you have parents and grandparents in a home, kids are gonna, the parents are the authority, not the grandparents. They're not gonna listen to me. I don't feel like I have, I don't really feel like I have the right to go over what parents say. It's the parents' responsibility to set rules. So for us to try to go over what they say, I don't think that's going to work. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You also indicated to me that they weren't setting any rules.
Right. There weren't. My way, the way I feel that rules need to be set and the way they feel are two different things. And that's the issue. It's there, but like I say, I personally don't feel like I can override what they say because they're the parents, but we have two different ways of, two different views of parenting.
And their view is less involvement, correct?
Yeah, they don't. I think the girls need more structure and discipline. You have to have, they need to be set. They need to go to bed at a certain time. They need, if you don't do something you're supposed to do, there has to be some kind of consequences. And I felt like the same thing that Jessica did, that, they love their tablets and all that, the video things. So a good way of punishing them would just be to take that away from them when they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Now, with regard to the parents, they're going to have an opportunity to improve their circumstances over time if they do what the department has asked of them and what the court asks of them. But they have been disruptive in your home, have they not?
Action leading.
It's cross, overruled.
Sir,
Skip,
witness, Your Honor.
I'm going to refer back to our visit. There were a great many things you told me on the telephone and that we talked about in person that I want to be sure you remember before you answer some of these questions under oath. At the time, you told me they were very disruptive to your home, correct?
I don't know what you mean by this. I don't remember using the word disruptive. I don't understand what you're saying. And yes, I was very frustrated when I talked to you. And I was very frustrated with the whole situation and with them. And a lot of that is, but I don't understand that. I don't think they're deliberately disruptive, if that's what you're trying to say.
But you can't control them, can you?
Control, you're talking about the kids. The kids or the parents? What are you asking me?
Parents. I haven't moved on to the kids just yet.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's my right to, I don't think I have the right to control the parents.
Let me be more specific and maybe that'll help. Okay. If you were the one supervising the visits, you can't completely control how they behave, can you?
Well, no, you can't control how anybody behaves.
No. You can't control it in your own home, and you're not going to be able to control it even if the court orders you to be the supervisor.
I have a problem with, personally me, I have a problem with communication. I have a problem with confrontation. I don't like any of that stuff. So I guess, you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you're saying. It's the same thing you've been saying, which is it's difficult to deal with the children and them at the same time, which is the position you would be in if you were supervising their visits, correct?
Correct. But if I had, I will say this, if I had a court order that told me I had to do a certain thing, I would follow. I worked for attorneys for 20 years. I understand the law and I respect the law. So if the judge ordered me to do a certain thing, no matter how hard that might be for me, and it would be hard for me to do if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, for me to call and report that. But for the children's sake, and also for my home, I would do that. I will tell you that right now. It will be very difficult, but I would.
But there's some things you haven't reported until recently anyway, aren't there?
Like, I don't know what I was supposed to, what should I have been reporting something? I mean, I've talked to Jessica and I've told her how I felt about things, but I don't know. I guess I'm not looking at it. I'll be honest with you. When I listened to you, even the last time, I'm not viewing it the same way you're viewing it. Maybe that's a flaw in me. I don't know. I'm not saying that some of those things, there are things going on that I don't agree with, but I don't think that it's intentional. And maybe I'm wrong in thinking that way. I don't know. But I do think that children need structure. I've said that all along. They don't get the structure and they don't get the discipline that they need.
Do you think part of that is because of the drug usage?
I think that's my biggest issue, is I don't understand the drug usage. That is my biggest thing. I don't understand that, because I've never dealt with it personally. I've never had an issue with any kind of a drug. So I don't understand that. And yes, I would believe that drugs will play a part in how the choices that you make and how you function.
And you have described to me before that it is Mr. Arwood in particular that seems the most hostile to you when you're trying to get along with everyone in the home.
They're not really hostile to me so much. It's that it's my husband, Tom. Because they butt heads. I mean, Tom will, if anytime the girls do something and we're trying to correct them, Tom tends to get a little bit, he reacts differently than I would react. When that happens, yeah, Scott comes out and he's wanting to address what we're doing, and that's not good because that's done in front of the kids, and it makes it, it's not good for them when we as parents and adults are fighting over what should be right or wrong in front of the kids. Does that make sense?
No, ma'am, because it's my impression that based on our previous conversations, that you did feel it would be better if they were, number one, out of the home, and there was some other way to structure this, at least initially, where you guys didn't have to be in the middle. You included, not just your husband.
Yeah, I did say that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that I don't agree with that. I do need to believe there needs to be.
I'll pass the witness.
Okay.
Ms. Sheldon.
Morning, Ms. Gephardt.
Yes.
I just have a couple questions. You said that the day that you talked to Ms. Blackman, you were so frustrated. Tell the court what you were frustrated about.
I guess I'm just, like I said, and I realized, because honestly, I'll be honest with you, I've never really sat down and talked to Athena and told her how I feel about all these things that are going on. Because as I said, I don't like confrontation. I'm just not a confrontational person. And I've not been honest with her about how I feel about what's going on and how I feel she needs to do things differently. And I finally, after all this, when it got to this point, I sat down after my conversation, even with Miss Blackman, and had an honest conversation with her and told her, because I say, Athena, she does get up in the morning, she gets them off to school, she does put them to bed at night. But the rest of the time during the day, it's like I never see you, Athena. You're never there. You're either outside in the car when in the summertime, or in the wintertime, or you're out in the back. And I realized, when we had that conversation, it's because, number one, it's the issue here is more, I guess, because we don't communicate, and the feelings between the parents, because I feel like kids should be, I feel like they should be disciplined this way. They feel a different way. And so, but instead of discussing things, I just hold it all in. And then I'm judging every decision they make and everything they do, because I'm very frustrated, because I don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. And then I realized after I talked to Athena, think about it. If you're in a home where there's this tension and you feel like you're not welcome, are you going to want to be in there, come in there and be part of the household when you don't even feel like you're welcome in that home?
So I guess what I'm hearing, you're frustrated because you don't feel like you're being respected. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I'm frustrated more with myself because I haven't been honest with them and told them what I expect from them and what I don't feel is right. And so because I've not spoken up and I've not been honest because I don't like confrontation or don't want to hurt their feelings, I've not been honest with them, and I've let all this stuff build up to where if we'd have just had some honest conversations, we might have been able to make some different decisions.
Okay, have y'all had some honest conversations now?
We're having some honest conversations right now, yes.
Okay, and y'all are making progress in that?
Yes.
Do you feel like you and your husband and Athena and Scott would all benefit from counseling?
Absolutely.
Along with the children as well?
Yes, because I want the children to be part of my life. I want Athena and Scott. I love my daughter. I love Athena. I love Scott. I wanted them. I prayed for years and years and years. You can ask my husband. It was my heart's desire that they come and be closer. I thought we would be moving to Tennessee to be closer to them. I never had any idea they'd be coming down this way. But I just envisioned, I wanted them to be close to us so that we could be part of a family and we could help. I just didn't realize that it would be so difficult relationship wise. And also, I'll be honest with you, Athena was she was I knew she was depressed. That's even in Tennessee. But I thought when she came down here and we all got together, everything was just going to change automatically and we would all be this one great big family. And it was made clear from the very beginning there would be no drugs in the house. And I think for a while there never was. So things just haven't worked out as I envisioned them, but I want them to work out. And part of that is we just have to learn to communicate.
Now, let me ask you, do you get help? You said that she helps you get the kids up, get ready for school.
He gets them up and ready for school. They're more challenging than most children.
Okay, let me stop you. Okay. Is that something you can do on your own if you're given placement of the kids?
Yes, I can do it on my own. I can do it if I have to.
Okay. As far as getting the kids ready to go to bed at night, bathed, homework, things like that, is that something she or Scott helps you with?
Yes.
Okay. Is that something
she always does the bathing? The girls don't feel, she helps dress them, still bathes them and all that kind of stuff. They don't feel as comfortable with me. Now, if I have to, of course, they would let me do it. They'd probably do it more themselves, but yes.
Yeah, they're kind of at that age where they're old enough to do it themselves.
But they just don't. They always had, Athena's always done everything for them. So they require more of her because that's just the way it's always been.
Okay. But if the court ordered them to not have access except for a certain amount of time each week, you would be able to take care of that?
Yes, I would.
Okay. And are you willing to supervise their access?
Yes, I'm willing to supervise their access. I think it would be actually better all the way around.
Okay. So you feel like it's in the kids' best interest for you to supervise their access as opposed to the department?
Yes, I feel like it would be better for me. I think that I can supervise them, particularly since they're going to have their own home. So we're going to be able to set the structure for our home and the rules for our home because there'll just be one head here. It won't be two heads of household anymore. It's one head of household. So that we can set the structure and the rules. And I really believe that Athena and Scott will honor that.
Okay. And do you have any objection to them staying there for 2 weeks until they get this new house?
No, I don't have
on
any
April the 1st.
No.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Just have a couple of questions. You know what we're talking about here is for a very short period of time that you be taking care of the kids. You're responsible. Basically, you and your husband are the boss. You understand that?
Yes, I understand that.
And you would be allowing them to visit at times and places that are appropriate, or at least that's what they're asking. And if you say no, then they can't visit,
yes,
except the specific times.
Yes.
And so do you feel like your daughter and your son-in-law could obey those rules or would obey those rules?
Yes, I believe they would.
Okay. And would that be too much of a burden for you to do that and take that responsibility?
No, because I'm here with them anyway. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pass the witness.
All right, call your next witness, Ms. Blackman.
Yes, I'd like to call Mr. Gebhardt briefly.
All right. Do you swear or affirm your testimony, sir, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You may lower your hand.
Mr.
Okay.
Gephardt, you and I visited too the last time that I was there. And I wanted to just ask you a few questions. The issue that we have specifically, right this minute, is not that, you know, the Arwoods would be able to visit their children. My concern is that your wife will actually be able to tell them no and to supervise them. And I know it might be hard for you sitting next to your wife to say one way or another, but do you actually really think she can completely control the way they behave if they come over to see the children?
I believe so. Let me just observe my observation since you all have gotten involved the last round here with you coming in the home. Athena has stepped up to the plate. She's been getting those girls up and doing their hair and trying to get them to school on time. And I drive them. There is no fussing. There's no argument there. But prior to you all getting involved, it was severe neglect. It was Athena just sleeping over there and Scott going to work and coming home and doing his whatever he does. So all of you getting involved has woke them up, and it's been very positive. So I can't say that now that you're all involved, see, now we have a backup that if we say something and they start saying, oh, you know, we can say, well, one phone call and we'll straighten this out. So I think they're willing to cooperative. Athena loves her children. The drugs are the reason why they are neglectful. If she weren't so spaced out on the drugs, even the methadone, that's my opinion. Athena wants to be a good mother. That is the truth. Now, as far as somebody said something that really is the issue here is when you have two heads, you in the home, there's always conflict because there's always got to be one head. If you understand what I'm saying, it's always got to be somebody who makes a decision. And then now my fault is I build things up in resentment because I've been thrown under the bus so many times. And I could give you a list of examples that you would say, oh, yeah, you got thrown under the bus. But I feel that Athena and Scott are now willing to see things differently and that we can work together. Now, I do have a problem. I stuff everything inside until you blow. And I even taught anger management, believe it or not, for the court systems. It's a pressure cooker. That's what we are right now, a pressure cooker. And the valve to let the steam out is clogged. And so we need the extra. I welcome any counseling that, you know, for us, so that we can, as my wife said, communication. I do know that deep down inside, Athena wants to be a good mother. And in some ways she has, but they have used video, you know, the TV as a babysitter to opt out. And
John, I'll object as to responsiveness. This is a narrative.
Just a.
Okay, I rambled on. I'm sorry.
Mr. Gephardt, I'll continue to ask you some questions about that. In terms of parenting, do you feel, I understand what you're saying about they love their children and they want to be good parents. But you do know that this all started in September, right?
It started with the crisis of a little baby being in the woods. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Started in September.
You're referring to
Are you frozen?
Christine.
Okay, there you go.
You're referring to Christine, right? When you say
Christine, yes.
Okay.
Why are we frozen?
And I'm not sure the court knows anything about that, but the other daughter ran off with these two girls, and that was the source of the Amber Alert. But she was found, and that situation was dealt with. And so then I guess CPS had occasion to look at these parents as well.
Yes.
Okay. And so in the interim between September, when they were urged to do services and things, that there just hasn't been any change until I came into the home and some other people came into the home and indicated that there were going to be some possibly strong measures taken.
That is correct.
Okay. Are you concerned at this point that it's possible that after the CPS involvement and the DA's involvement, and everybody's involvement is over, that things could return to a bad situation?
That's only anybody's guess.
I know you hope not. I know you hope not. So.
Woke them up. Yes. I think they have the tools. I believe, honestly, it's when you smoke methamphetamine, you're in another world. You don't even have the ability to get up out of bed. So that's basically, I think, if they can get drug free and they get accountability with counseling, they may get the tools to and the desire to be better parents. Yes. That's
okay. I'll pass the witness.
All right. Anyone else?
No, Your Honor.
No questions.
Ms. Sheldon?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Lee, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, it occurs to me as the court that two things absolutely need to happen in this case. The first thing, of course, is that the parents of these children become totally drug-free. And it's easy to say that, but I run a drug court program, as Ms. Shelton is aware, and the other attorneys. And so I've had an awful lot of training and a lot of experience in the area of addictive drug use. And it's easy to have good intentions. It's very difficult to carry through with those good intentions. I will say that it's been my experience with methadone. Methadone is a highly addictive drug, even though it may be being taken legally and with a prescription. It nevertheless leads to an addiction. That addiction is not a whole lot better than other types of addictions because it creates problems of all kinds of physical problems with attention and that sort of thing. So we absolutely need to get to a point in this case where both parents are testing negative, certainly for illegal drugs, and at some point, both parents are testing negative for any addictive drug. I'm not a physician, I'm not a doctor, I do not try to place my judgment over theirs insofar as what either parent should be taking in the way of drugs or other substances, but I'm just saying that as long as there is an addiction to a mind-altering drug, there is a problem, whether that drug be prescribed or not prescribed. Step one is for both parents to get into some kind of program, follow ETCATA, whatever's been recognized, and find a way to become drug-free and find a way to test negative. In order for the court to have any idea of whether that's occurring, I need them tested on a regular basis, testing them one time or two times between, I think it was over a 4 or 5 month period. It certainly doesn't give the court enough information about where they stand, how well they're doing, and that kind of thing. So I want the department to have them tested at least once a month. I'd like to have one hair follicle and one UA per month from each parent and file those results with the court. Because as I see it, that's the primary reason that I'm prohibited at this point from returning the children to the parents. The second thing, I said there are two things that need to happen. Second thing is that the parents go through with their plans to move out of the Gephardt home by April the 1st. That does not appear to be, at least has not been, a workable situation for anyone, and will make it very difficult for the court to fashion any kind of enforceable order that has to do with children being placed with a Gephardt. I am going to appoint the department as temporary managing conservators. I'm going to approve the placement with their grandparents. Until April 1st, I'm not going to require visitation at the department at this point. I don't think that's beneficial to the children, because there has been significant testimony that the parents are contributing to their daily care, but that can't continue because they're going to be in Liberty Islo, and the kids are going to still be here in Cass County. So insofar as access, I'll order that they continue to be have supervised access with the children for a maximum of, let's say, 5 hours per week. I'll leave it up to the grandparents to decide where and when and how that's to be done. Sounds like mornings and nights based on what's been going on. But I want this move out to occur as planned by April 1st. And after April 1st, visitation will continue to be supervised by the grandparents. I'm going to leave it at the discretion of the grandparents during weekdays. If they want the children to visit with the parents during weekdays, fine. If not, fine. That's going to be strictly under their control. As far as weekends, I'm going to specify 2 hours per Saturday and 2 hours per Sunday. Again, with those 2 hours to be determined, the exact 2 hours to be determined by the grandparents. I do think that counseling is appropriate for all parties concerned, the children, the parents, and the grandparents. I'd like to see that occur. I think there are other components. I'm adopting the proposed parenting plan, but those other components are important, but to me, not as important as the counseling and the drug testing. Those are the main things that I want to see occur. I think we can get to a point where the court can do what it's supposed to do, which is find a way to get these children back to their parents. That's the goal. The goal is not to terminate the rights of these parents at any point. Certainly not the desire of the court. And if these two parents start testing negative, then I'm going to take a real close look at a monitored return or something else along that line. Any questions?
Judge, I do have a question. You said after April the 1st, it'll be at the discretion of the Gephardts during the weekday. Did you still mean maximum 5 hours per week, or
Yes,
was
I
that
did.
totally
Yes.
at the discretion? Okay,
So
still the maximum of 5 hours per week.
So basically, that's 3 hours during the week. Well, maximum 5 hours per week.
But then the additional 2 hours on Saturday and 2 hours on Sunday?
Correct.
So that's a total of 9.
Could be. It depends on what the grandparents
After April the
think
1st?
is right, is appropriate.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not one, I don't like the idea of using lack of access to the children as a fulcrum to encourage drug testing and getting off drugs and so forth. That's not in the best interest of the children. I've never had that view. Sometimes it has that effect. It encourages compliance, but there are other steps that can be taken rather than severely limiting access. What I'm hearing is if the grandparents have the say and it's clear and everybody knows that, we're not going to have too much of a problem. And I think I've made that clear that they do. Okay. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All
No,
right.
Your Honor.
Let's
No, Your
get
Honor,
copies of those orders to the grandparents and the parents so that they will be clear on what the visitation is.
yes, sir. And the next status hearing is May the 7th.
All right. I'll review this on May 7. By that time, I would think that the parents would be out of the home and perhaps have a new residence established. I think that'll go a long way. If they, it's difficult for two families to live together, especially one with small children. I know exactly where the grandparents are coming from. I'm a grandparent. And that's absolutely correct. The child's going to look to the parent if the grandparent's not the one in charge. That's just the way it is. So hopefully we'll have a different situation in May and we'll take another look at it.
Yes,
All
sir.
right.